Hi, Dhruv.
Hi Sheba, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's such a pleasure to have you join me for a soul brew on Coffee and Soul. Thank you so much for making the time, Dhruv.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Sheba. It's a pleasure to be here for sure.
Lovely. I'm really delighted to have you here, Dhruv. It's been a while, and it's so good to reconnect.
Yeah, same here after so many years. And isn't it absolutely amazing that our paths crossed in Levi's so many years back, and here we
Correct.
are reconnecting again.
That's right. It's awesome.
Yeah, such interesting journeys we have
Yeah,
both.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, do you have your cup of coffee ready with you?
Yes, I have, as you instructed, and I didn't have to be because I'm always sitting in office with this
Coffee.
one. So cheers to that.
Yes, and here's to
Uh,
life and living, Dhruv.
Absolutely.
Oh yes. Hmm.
So no coffee, no life.
No coffee, no life. Correct. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Can I just ask you to hold that cup of coffee between your palms?
Pardon?
If you can just hold that cup of coffee between your palms
Okay.
and just sit back. Just sit back and relax.
Yes, yes. It's nice and warm and it's
Nice
cold
and
here in
warm.
Delhi, as you know.
Yes, exactly.
Not as cold as it was in Manali a few days ago.
Oh, you were in Manali. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I just decided to work there for a few days. The pollution
Right.
in Delhi was so
Too
adverse.
much. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was working there for about a week or so.
That must have been fabulous.
Amazing. Yeah. I was in this room all day, taking meetings with -7 outside. but it was but it was great.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you hold this cup of coffee in your hands, and can I ask you
Yeah.
to close your eyes and sit back?
Yeah. Okay.
And what comes up for you?
What comes out for me?
Mm,
Yeah,
what do you see?
tranquility and bliss.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
what
yeah.
what else? How tranquility and bliss and what you're seeing?
Yeah, I'm pretty much at this moment in time in terms of what I'm feeling. I'm feeling quite tranquil
Right.
with a cup of coffee in my hand and
Yeah.
having an intelligent conversation with someone like you, which is what I don't get all the time. So yes, it's
Mm,
good.
mm.
Yeah, it's nice to connect, and it's nice to be in the moment. I'm
Absolutely.
sure 1 hour later I'll be in some meeting and I won't be tranquil anymore.
Yeah.
It won't be. It'll be probably stormy.
Yeah, with the kind of role that you have,
Yes.
Dhruv, absolutely, and that's
And I,
possibly.
and I promised to I promised my team that I'll share this video with them, so they're going to be laughing when they hear this. We don't know this bloke could be tranquil.
Yeah, no, it's I hear you, tranquil and blissful, and I also noticed that lovely cup of coffee you're carrying. Uh,
Yeah, I kind of really liked it. It kind of appealed to me with the reindeer, with the Christmas tree. I mean, with the fir trees,
yeah,
and
for the current season, and you
yeah.
did a pour over, did you not?
Yes, yes, and my pour over is right here, as you can see.
Yeah.
The paraphernalia in office.
So where did you pick this up?
I picked it up during my cycling journey in the US. I mean, in Canada, of course, I met a lot of fellow cyclists
Mm,
who I was carrying a lot of green tea with me, or I'd buy it on the way. I was still a tea drinker,
yeah,
not so
yeah.
much of a. I used to drink black coffee once in a while, but not an
Mm,
avid coffee drinker. And then sort of saw these guys making these concoctions early in the morning, in the campground. A great ado and a lot of passion, and the coffee would really sort of energize them. And I did know that caffeine is great for cyclists.
right.
So as I was touring through Alaska and Canada and the US and other countries in the cold, I realized that there was great coffee to be had here.
Yeah.
And once I entered Mexico, I had great coffee everywhere. I had all the famous Guatemalan, Nicaraguan, Central American coffees, and then the Colombian coffees. So I sort of savored all of them.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think I've become quite a coffee flavor expert now.
I can imagine
Yeah.
because you actually you literally you were there in the in the areas that grow these coffees, right? And
Yes,
and
yes,
and
yes.
so this brings me very nicely to to my next question, Dhruv. What is this? What did you do, and what has been your journey? What led you to arrive at doing this expedition that you went on solo, cycling the Americas?
Shiva, I mean, as you know, I've been in corporate life almost since what 1992, 93,
Mm,
and had been almost 25 years at it. And I've
mm,
kind of felt a little out of perspective and a loss of purpose
mm,
sort of feeling used to come over me many often.
mm,
And I used to wonder, what is the real purpose of my life,
mm,
and what should I be doing, and
mm,
how do I
mm,
need to pivot to a new way of life?
mm,
And I'd also taken up cycling a few years ago in
mm,
2012. So, uh, one day I was just sort of glancing through a biking magazine that I used to
mm,
subscribe to, and I saw this picture of this touring cyclist, heading into the Bolivian plateaus
mm,
at a very high altitude, obviously, and that picture was just stunning.
mm,
And I could just experience the sense of freedom that he must have been feeling at that moment in time. And I said, this is what I need to feel, the sense
mm,
of open spaces and freedom and a life in the outdoors
mm,
for an extended period to really discover who I really am and what I'm meant to do.
mm, mm,
Uh, so I think it was part, I would say, a search for a purpose, part burnout, part wanting to seek freedom.
mm,
And I combined that with my passion for cycling, and I said, okay, let me explore a part of the world. At that point, when the idea got injected in my mind, I didn't even think that would be for a year and a half. I just thought maybe I'll just take a short trip for a couple of months and come
mm,
back, or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. But what turned out was something very different. And this happened during a hiking trip in Alaska, which I took for about 10 days.
mm,
And I just fell in love with that country, with that wilderness,
mm,
with the remoteness of the place. And I said, I've got to come back here. And then, sure enough, I found myself mapping a route from Alaska down south
mm,
to. I said, first, I said, let me do North America. And then I said, why not the South of America as well?
mm, mm,
And then, the dreams just got bolder and bolder, and said, why not the tip of the world? Start from the top and go to the bottommost part of the world, which is Ushuaia in Argentina.
right.
So that was the original dream. And so in 2016, after a lot of planning, June 21st, I actually started out from a place called Dead Horse in Alaska, which is the northernmost point of the North American continent. It's where the road ends,
I,
actually.
I
So it's
remember
no man's
reading
land.
about it.
So
Yes.
it's no man's land. And I flew there with my bicycle. And there is a small airport there because there's a massive oil field there,
Mm,
and the Americans use it to ferry oil rig workers.
mm,
So, and people live in container homes over there.
mm,
It's not really a city. It's just a town. It's a small community and township where oil rig workers work, and they work on the platforms. So oil fields. So I lived there for 2 3 days, got myself acclimatized, and then started cycling south. So from the tip of North America down from Alaska into Canada, the remotest parts of the world you can think of,
wow.
and then of course into a bit of civilization on the western coast of the US, and then back into a desert in Mexico and the
Mm,
mountains there, and Central America with all its rainforests and volcanoes
wow. Mm.
and great culture, and very
A
colorful
year and
country.
a half on the road?
Yes, a year and a half on the road with all my gear, and obviously I was carrying everything that I had to live with, whether
Yeah,
it was my tent or my sleeping bag, pots and small pots and pans here and there, couple of them, stove for cooking food,
yeah.
some clothes. That's it.
Oh,
So
oh,
about 40 kilos of gear, approximately. All the water that you need to carry, also
sure,
food.
sure, sure.
We have to restocking on the way.
That's amazing. And so this year and a half, I mean, yes, of course, for physically arduous, I'm sure. Uh,
Oh yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
What
Yeah.
did it do for you? And you said that, you're seeking freedom from, and that's kind of stayed in my mind right now when you said that. Did you find what you were seeking freedom from?
I mean, I found it in a different way. I discovered that I would be happy in the outdoors, number one. And number two, I discovered that there is a secret to the world that very few people stumble upon. And even if they do, nobody hears them because it frightens them to think that they could be another world. So I'm going to try and explain it to you in this
Please tell
in
me.
this
Yes.
conversation. I think when I was there in the wilderness in the Yukon and in Canada, and and in Alaska, and 2 3 days would go by when I would not even meet anyone or talk to anyone.
Mm.
When you're cycling alone on the road and then through forests, it's a bit like a Lord of the Rings kind of a scenario, if
Yeah,
you can think of it like
I
that.
can.
You
Yes.
start imagining that there can be no other world. I mean, and the world that's been created is basically some sort of a massive social experiment where everyone's living in cages in these cities. But
Mm.
we are actually born to be in nature, to be wild, and to be living freely,
Mm.
and not bound by the things that society expects us to do or structures for us from the day we are born.
Mm.
So whether it's going to school or it's going to get a job after school or getting married, having children, and then getting old and dying, I think that's a process that's been laid out for centuries
Mm.
by humanity.
Mm.
But when you really look back into the way the indigenous tribes live in those regions,
Mm.
they still follow a lot of practices that they used to follow for centuries.
Mm.
Of course, they're all modern now. They don't dress all the time in their traditional wear, or
Of
they
course.
have
Yes.
modern careers and modern jobs, but in their heart, they still follow all the traditions and norms in their societies.
Mm.
And you find that they think very differently. They think about man's relationship with nature all the time, and
Mm.
nature for them is, and the land and the earth is inseparable from
Mm.
um, from their future
Mm.
and their
Mm.
livelihood. So uh, that interconnectedness is missing completely in the world today.
Yeah.
And my biggest discovery was that this is something which is such a important truth, but
Mm.
we tend to sort of shy away from it.
Mm.
And it's very important that we find a purpose somewhere in life where we detach ourselves a bit from all the things that we believe can give us happiness, because the real happiness and joy and freedom actually lies in embracing nature and
Yeah.
being gentle towards it, you know
Absolutely, and towards
so
each other. I think
yeah,
what you just said, Dhruv, it's really like you touched the part of us which actually continues to be the hunter-gatherer. The nomadic kind of.
exactly. And Shiva, I used to feel like a hunter gatherer because all that I was obsessed with
Mm.
during the day was, where am I going to fill my water from, and what am I going to eat.
Mm.
my,
Mm.
my my needs got down to two things: food and
Mm.
water,
Mm.
and finding a place to sleep at night.
Mm.
I
Mm.
stopped worrying about things that pull us down sometimes in our
Mm.
day-to-day
Mm.
lives.
Mm.
Of course, when you're on the road, you can't compare it to leading a normal life. I
Of
mean, it's
course,
it's
of course.
different.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that life, when it's down to basic needs,
Mm.
it can really become very simple.
Mm.
We
Mm.
complicate it because we want to surround ourselves with material things and
Mm.
with assets and
Mm.
acquiring them. And
Mm.
therefore, the acquisition of assets and material things becomes the main purpose of our life, though we may not admit it.
Mm.
But we all in jobs, and we're all in doing things, being busy,
Mm.
because we want to earn money and buy more things or
Correct.
make ourselves more comfortable. But what I realized, living on two shirts, two pieces of underwear, three
Mm.
pairs of socks over a year and a half,
Mm.
is that you need very little in life to survive.
Mm.
I
Mm.
was living off the road,
Mm.
literally, and
Mm.
I was the happiest ever in my life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not because I didn't have to work. I was working day in and day out. I was pedaling
Sure.
furiously.
My God. Yes.
I was
Yeah.
planning, looking at maps, seeing where I have to sleep. Strategizing. It was just wasn't like a walk in the park. It's
It's
hard work. You know.
Yeah, I just want to come in here and tell, and completely resonate with what you're saying, because we in our societies tend to think of work as equal to pay. So that which pays is work, and otherwise it's not work, which is so
Yes.
not true.
Yes.
Work in itself is neutral. It's
Yes.
work. Payment is something that, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Dhruv. I'm
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, uh, it's difficult for anyone to fathom that, and
Yeah.
it's not easy. I mean, I myself came back, to fulfill a certain uh, to fill a certain quest for income, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, ideally speaking, so I am of course there myself a little bit,
Mm.
but I haven't forgotten the lessons of the journey,
Sure.
and I
Sure.
will go back and revisit those lessons and remind myself that I need to, sort of imbibe that again, and I'm
Mm.
on that journey again.
Sure.
So in my own small way, to try and see that those lessons are never lost.
Absolutely. And you've
And
written another book, right?
yes, it's called Away.
Yeah.
So I wrote Away during the lockdown. I think it was
Okay.
sometime in May.
Okay.
And it's a collection of short stories, which is like a prequel to Grit, Gravel, and Gear and a
Mm.
sequel to that.
Okay.
Grit, Gravel, and Gear straddles in the middle, but it sort of Away is about 6, 7 adventure stories where actually try to chronicle how I got into cycling
Mm.
and what all adventures led me to it. And then post my coming back, how I continued to go on those adventures in spite of the fact that I had a full time job. So, away is supposed to signify being away from a normal life, away finding your freedom,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
we can. It was just written with a hope because everyone was caged in
Yeah.
for so many months,
Yeah.
especially in Delhi. We had a very harsh lockdown
Yes.
for a very long time, and I wrote it because I wanted to inspire people to say, okay, I can get away to the mountains. I can even bike, I can run, I can walk, I can
Mm.
hike,
Mm.
but I need to get away. And my job should not be an excuse not to do this for myself.
Mm.
So get away to find your freedom. That was the primary core message behind the book. It's a very short book. It's not very big.
I'd love
It's
to
not a
read it. I'm
it's not
looking
a big
forward
one
to
like Grit, Gravel, and Gear.
Great
It's
Gravel and Gear was big.
I took me a year to write it. This
Yeah,
one I just finished in
sure.
30 days.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so it's
yeah.
7 short stories of different adventures in the Himalayas
Lovely.
and two in Alaska. So I'm trying to inspire people to sort of do their own thing and
Mm,
find their tune with nature actually.
mm,
That's
mm.
really, really important.
That is so beautiful, Dhruv. Uh, as you continue to reflect on your journey, can you talk to me about some of your highs, your defining moments, some of your lows, whatever you can share? You don't
I
have
had
to.
many highs and very few lows actually. And my highs were, basically the stunning landscapes in Alaska, in Canada, in
So I'm
Mexico.
coming in here, not necessarily of this journey. I mean,
Mhm.
in life per se, not in your expedition.
Yeah, in life there have been so many. I mean, life has been like a mountain range, up and down. You go up a mountain, you come down to the pass, and you climb all the way again.
Yeah.
So my journey has not been smooth for me. It's been actually it's a struggle, and I felt that challenges were constantly thrown at me, and I had to keep overcoming them. It was almost like playing a video game where then the,
Excellent.
the levels keep increasing. It's not getting easier. Okay, and sometimes you fall with a thud and you get up again and you rise again. So
Mm,
I would possibly characterize my life as a life of having to fall and rise again and again and again. And I've become used to that rhythm now, Sheba. So
mm,
and it's fun. So when people ask me what was your biggest learning from the journey, I say just struggle, just embrace struggle and hardship in life, and you'll be fine. If you make friends with it, it's going to be okay, and you'll stop using the word struggle and hardship. You will
that's
just see it
phenomenal.
as a you will just see it as a part of life,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's the way I see it. And the journey became a metaphor for life itself because I would summit a mountain,
Mm,
my backside would be sore, my legs would be hurting,
mm,
the sun would be really down, beating hard on me, and I would
mm,
say like I can't go another range.
mm,
But I still had to cross the mountain because I still had to get to a particular place where there would be water.
mm,
Otherwise, I'd be stuck in the middle of the desert.
mm.
So I had to climb the mountain, go down to the town, into the pass, beyond the pass in the valley, right? And then climb the next morning again another mountain to go
Yes,
down to the town in the next valley.
yes,
So this was like up and down, but it was happening on a daily basis where
mm,
life does it to us over a period of time, of
correct. Yeah,
20
yeah,
years, 25 years, 30 years. So it's like a metaphor for life, it's
yeah,
going to be up and down. And it's been like that for me, and I guess it's like that for everyone.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
that the scale of it varies from person to person.
Absolutely. And
you know.
particularly if you think of yourself as living in an accelerated lifetime and you kind of the growth is like a spiral, right? I mean, it may
Yes,
be up and down, but actually you're moving up without.
yes.
So I think that's what I'm hearing, and I think that is really beautiful, Dhruv.
Yes, and Shiba, I've lived a very very high pressure job. I've worked for many brands, I've launched many brands, and that's a high pressure sales job.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Whether it was with Levi's itself, launching Levi's, then launching Dockers, and then prior
Mm,
to that, I launched Scotch Brite and Post-it notes in India, and then after that, I launched Disney for Weekender, and then again I launched another brand after that. So, you know, I've been in this strange spot where I've been launching things and launching companies, and that's taken from a sales guy's perspective, took a lot of me, you know, from leading large teams and dealing in high pressure situations and leading a very stressful life all the time. So I think I found cycling as a great, and running
Mm,
and hiking as great, I would say, relievers of stress,
mm, mm,
and sort of a way to reconnect back to myself
mm,
and come back energized to uh, my job and to my team, who would expect me to lead them with a certain amount of dexterity and strength, and and certain sense of direction.
mm.
So yeah, I mean, it's not been easy,
Sure,
both at the personal level and the professional level, but that's nothing unusual. A lot of us go through it,
sure, sure.
almost everyone.
Yeah, I guess how you roll with the punches is how it happens.
Yes, you got to roll with the punch, take it, fall down and get up again, and
Mm. And
keep
keep
punching
walking.
and keep getting punched back and keep punching back and getting on with it, one match after the other.
Is there anything you feel you could have done differently, Dhruv, in your life? I don't mean it
Yeah,
in terms of regrets. I'm just saying,
yeah,
so, you know.
yeah. I think I should have sort of, when I came back from my journey, I should have. Um, okay, let me look at it and say it slightly differently. I think I should have sort of continued with my journey for some more time.
Okay.
Okay, it's not a regret,
Mm,
but it's something that was unfinished business,
mm,
and I should have sort of found a way to be able to contribute more creatively and proactively to some of the things that I believed in. Okay, so one was climate change, the other was environment protection, the third was fighting for the rights of the indigenous people in the world. So these are all causes which are there in my mind, which I want to sort of devote my life to. And I feel that I should have spent more time uh, getting into that and developing a greater understanding of those issues at a far deeper level than what it is today.
mm,
And I'm sure I'll do it one day. But
mm.
right now, it's something that it's not a regret, but it's something I would have liked to do differently. I would not have liked to come back immediately to the world that I'm in today.
Mm.
Maybe later, I could have done it later. I think it was a bit premature. I think
Was
if I
there some
did that,
dissonance? Did you feel a lot of dissonance, or did you smoothly connect back? Dhruv, how was it for you?
it was a massive dissonance because
Mm,
I felt it at the spiritual level, at the
mm,
physical level, because I came back from Peru straight to Delhi, and the pollution almost killed me. I think the first 6 months was dealing with Delhi by itself as a crowded city was still okay. I could deal
mm,
with it. That was not a problem.
mm,
I think it was the pollution that played havoc with my biological
mm,
setup,
mm,
and I had a massive issue settling back again. I couldn't breathe most nights. I had problems with that. I couldn't cycle for 3, 4 months, 5 months,
mm,
because I knew that if I went out, I'd develop some issue or the other, because my
mm,
lungs were just not prepared for
mm,
that beating that they were getting.
mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm,
But then after 5 or 6 months, I guess they got used to the air
mm.
once again, and then I was fine. But for the first 5, 6 months, it was pretty bad. So I turned that energy to writing the book.
Right,
So
right,
I
right.
spent that time where I couldn't do much.
Mm,
I didn't have a job.
mm, mm,
Physically, I was not feeling that great because of the
mm,
air and stuff like
mm,
that. So
mm,
I devoted all my energy to writing the book. I spent 6 months post coming back, writing it, finishing it, getting it edited, published.
mm,
So that way, it was time well spent. But yes,
mm,
the dissonance with life, a crowded city,
mm,
and different attitudes and different culture all
mm,
over again, including the diet, were very different. So I
mm.
got used to a very oilless, saltless diet. Not bland,
Yeah, I
but
understand.
food is prepared differently in
Mm.
different parts of the world. So getting used to the spices and the oils again was a big challenge once again.
Yeah, yeah, and that's at the physical level, but I'm sure there were many other things that, like you said, the
Yeah,
culture and
yeah. The spiritual level also, it was
mm.
very difficult to sort of. People wanted to know about the journey, but then when I would tell them stories like the way I'm telling you, some of them thought I was cuckoo. you know,
It's
and I said,
beyond reference points through.
beyond reference points, like you
Yeah,
rightly said. And
yeah,
I don't sort of have a problem with that. It's
of
just that I
course,
tried my best
of course.
to, but I cannot articulate the feeling of sleeping alone in a forest,
Mm.
under 1,000-year-old trees.
Yeah,
You know,
I can
it's
imagine.
till you don't do it yourself alone, you can't experience, what you
Awesome,
go
Dhruv.
through. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, that's all I can say. No one can know it. No one can know it like you know it. You're totally right that you have to actually be there to
Yes,
to
yes.
to go
The
through that.
hallucinations you get, the
Mm.
dreams you get sleeping in ancient forests, it's everything that you read in and see in movies.
Really,
It's it's that true and it's that eerie.
really, yeah.
It's just incredible. It
So
plays.
you do get those kinds of? I
Oh
think
my
it's
God,
you mentioned
psychedelic
it.
dreams,
Yeah, yeah,
strange dreams which you never get in the city ever. But you
yeah,
sleep in an ancient forest alone in the night. Oh my God,
yeah.
the hallucinations you have. It's almost as if this forest has just entered your being and is talking to you. Oh, it's just incredible.
Wow, this is my goosebump moment with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. Did you ever feel, one is of course the joy of it all, and
Yes.
the of being alone with all this, and yet not alone, totally connected is what I'm hearing. But did you ever feel the lack of not having someone with you to share it? Did that ever come up? But most of your journey you were alone.
Most of my journey, I was alone. I had cyclists who would join me for a week or so once in a while.
Mm,
But that also very, very less. Just 2, 3 times that happened. Maybe there was there were a couple from Texas who were good friends and
mm,
now good friends now, and we met twice on the journey and just
mm,
stuck to each other for about a couple of weeks each
mm,
time.
mm.
But beyond that, I had really had no company, so I was mostly alone, and I didn't sort of miss having anyone. I
You
mean, I was
didn't.
happy.
Mm,
I was happy with my aloneness,
mm,
and even from a practical point of view, a lot of the other cyclists who were on the road were experienced touring cyclists
mm.
from Europe or from the Americas. They'd been cycling for almost the entire life. They
Right.
were
Yeah.
they were really good at touring.
Mm,
They would move much faster than me,
mm,
and I realized, and they were not the type who had the same passion for things like photography
mm,
and historical culture that I was seeking. So
mm,
our paths would never really follow the same route.
mm,
Whereas
mm,
my route would take me sometimes back into cities, into seeing museums and
mm,
archaeological
mm,
excavations and things like that, or the Maya or the
mm,
Inca.
mm,
Whereas
mm.
many of them would just want to go into the villages.
Right, right,
But
right.
for me, from that perspective, I'm already from India. I know what
Yeah,
villages look like.
correct,
I mean,
correct.
I know what that life is all about, and I
Mm,
experienced the same kind of villages there as well.
right,
But for
right,
me, of greater interest was the landscape photography,
yeah,
stopping, taking pictures, taking my time over a place, over a
right,
spot,
right,
which
right,
they would find, they would get impatient with.
right, right.
Okay? I knew they would.
Yeah,
And the other part is, of course, going into towns.
right.
A lot of touring cyclists don't like going into towns.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I wanted to because I wanted to experience the local museum, the local
Mm,
church,
mm, mm, mm,
understand what people do and stuff like that. So
mm, mm.
our journeys would be very different. So
Sure.
I was quite happy being alone because it gave me time and space to explore those countries in my own pace.
Yes, yes. That's amazing. Um, you've already talked to me about your metaphor for life, which is what you've lived through and what you shared. If I was to ask you now, Dhruv, some of the things that you talked about was about doing this to inspire others. So, what is your unique legacy to humankind? And each one of us has something special to bring, which nobody else
Mm.
brings, and we add to the tapestry our own special thread. What is yours?
I'm not sure what my legacy is, but ever since I've come back, I've been trying a lot to convey a love for the outdoors, love for animals, a love for the indigenous people in the world through my book, through my writings, and through all the talks that I've given so far.
Mm,
When I left in 2016, there was barely anyone who was really touring on a bicycle in India.
mm,
Today, I see hundreds of people who are buying equipment to go on tour on their own, shorter trips, maybe Kashmir to
mm,
Kanyakumari or
mm,
Bombay to Delhi, or
mm, mm.
those are still more road bike kind of trips.
Right,
But
right.
many people are actually packing up their bikes and going and exploring the country, which was not the case 5 years back.
Yeah.
So I think in some small way, I could have been instrumental in catalyzing through my
Absolutely.
posts and through the grapevine about what I'm doing. Many people would have started found the courage to say it's possible and started doing that.
Absolutely.
And of course the others. So maybe somebody joined, and then that person inspired somebody else. So it
Yeah.
became like a cascading effect, right?
Snowball.
So
Yeah.
so that's I think that's one part. The second part is that I talk a lot about grit to people, and especially at work, with other people as well, that how important the function of grit is in your life, and how important it is to sort of be focused and very very detail oriented in whatever you do.
Mm,
So that's the kind of while we used to talk about it earlier, but
mm,
now I have live examples to share
mm,
with people and
mm,
bring that credibility to the conversation
mm,
at work.
mm,
So I see that style of leadership kind of disseminating down to the other senior leaders in the organization, who do understand now the importance of micro leadership,
mm,
of you know going beyond their potential, what they
mm,
believe is their potential.
mm,
Their
mm,
potential is much more, and they can do much more.
mm.
Not just as professionals, but as people in their personal lives, they can try to aspire for more.
Sure, sure.
And yes, I think hundreds of people who've been inspired to take up cycling after me.
It is so true. I'm
And so many
sure
people have told me, Dhruv, I took up cycling because of you, and I
because
feel
of
so
you.
happy.
Yeah,
Boss, I just started cycling. Few girls also.
yeah.
Boss, I started cycling 20 kilometers today. I did my first bike ride thanks to you. So I keep getting these messages from people on and off, and that's really heartwarming.
That's fabulous. And I'm very, very inspired. So I want to get onto that cycle. I've done a little bit of cycling, but not the way you have. And definitely not. I don't even know whether I ever will.
Do it when you're back in Pondicherry for sure. Pondicherry to Chennai and back.
I know that, yes, that is possible. But even here, one can pick up and look at who are the like-minded people and just pick up
Yeah,
something and
not the
go.
safest of places to cycle at the moment with
Not
the air
really.
the way it is.
Not really.
It's
Yeah,
hazardous air today,
I
so
know. I know. It's every. What do we do? We live
it's
with
not
this.
safe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But having said that, you have been a source of inspiration for many, and I hope you continue to do that, Dhruv, because when you talk about the indigenous people, you look at the tribes. I mean, there is so much here in India itself, no? When you look at the
Yes.
tribes here, which are not included oftentimes into even into a vocabulary around it.
No, they're not. And
Yeah,
the word indigenous doesn't exist really in India.
correct,
We use
correct.
the word tribe, which is fine. But the
Yeah,
issue is that their issues are not seen as live issues. I think a
right,
lot of people think that the tribals are backward people.
right.
They don't wear clothes. They live in jungles. They don't have a culture. They need to be educated. For example, I read an article on there's a residential boarding school somewhere in our country, I think it's in Odisha, where girls are sent to study from the Adivasi community. And, the thing that I sort of struck me, which that article didn't strike me earlier, but when I came back, um, you see what happened in the 50s and 60s was the Canadian government took away children
Mm,
and put them into boarding schools,
mm.
the indigenous tribes.
Yes, the first people,
And
right? Yeah.
the First Nations people,
Mm,
and those they sort of couldn't even choose the name.
mm,
They were given English names. They were
mm,
given an English education, Western style education. They were given
mm,
Western clothes to wear.
mm,
They
mm,
lost touch with their language. The language is not a written language,
mm,
so it was a
mm,
spoken language. So when they
mm,
came back, they didn't know the language at all. So
mm,
as a result, there's been a whole generation of
mm,
First Nations people in
mm,
the middle who don't know the language, don't know the
mm,
culture, don't know the tradition. And you
mm,
see the same thing happening in our country, where in the name of education and progress, we are taking away ancient knowledge and
mm,
ancient cultures and customs and traditions away from those people,
mm,
and forcing them to wear a westernized uniform
mm,
clothing in school and
mm.
class, where they forget to even wear what they were wearing back
Absolutely.
in the villages.
Mm,
They lose
mm,
the original costume, their original traditional dresses, which is a pity because it's so much a part of the fabric of humankind.
mm,
It's
mm.
you will lose the soul and a sense of mankind
Absolutely.
if you cut away the last the bridge we have to our ancestors. We'll be a soulless planet.
Exactly. Exactly. And there is so much work to be done in this area. So much in terms of bringing it to awareness, getting tribes around it. You know, the our
Yeah, yeah.
tribes around it to be able to talk about
There are forestry issues, there are
it.
land issues.
Yeah, yeah,
People think we're giving education and westernizing them, you're giving them progress. It's not that. You can have a balance of both.
exactly.
You can educate and you can help people design programs to keep them deep rooted in their customs and traditions, at least some of them. And who are we to say what is backward and what is progressive? I mean,
Exactly.
we can't be
Exactly.
judgmental about
Exactly.
it.
So
Yeah.
what else? What else would you like to say? You know, we are coming pretty much to the close of our conversation. And what else?
I think it's just all I want to say is, and to anyone who's hearing this program or seeing it, is that find your freedom. I think find your space to recreate yourself and really be who you are. And perhaps don't, it's scary, it's a scary journey. But once you get past the first step and the second step, the steps after that on your journey are fairly easy. And they come, the universe opens up for you and gives you all the guidance you need to be on that journey. So find your purpose, and the purpose can keep changing, but find your purpose, find your freedom. uh, I would say spend more time with nature and protect it and be gentle with it, and become vocal about nature issues. Those are critical for the planet. And find a
Yeah,
voice to talk about it, even if you can't do much about it politically, or you don't have to go for a mass protest if you don't feel
mm,
comfortable. But can you please talk about it and put pressure
mm,
through various social media to
mm.
bring awareness about love for animals, love for nature, and try and be a softer, gentler human being.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Dhruv. It's been an absolute delight to talk to you and,
Thank you,
you know,
Shiva.
just spend
It's
this time
been
together.
absolutely wonderful speaking to you. Thank you for all your wonderful questions, because sometimes the questions make all the difference.
It's my pleasure. It
Yeah.
totally has been. And all the very best as you journey
Thank
on
you.
with
Thank
all
you,
the
Shiva.
things that you want to continue to do. All
Thank
the
you. I
very
wish you the
best.
same.
Thank you
And
so
Merry
much.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas and have a,
Yeah.
I hope 2021 is fabulous for you and for all of us now.
2020 was fabulous.
Uh,
It depends how you look at it. I
yeah,
learned so much out of this
yeah,
crisis.
yeah, yeah.
So it shows up things about you that you didn't know existed. So
That's so true.
all of us. So yes, we
Yeah,
have a lot to be grateful to the
yeah,
universe for.
yeah, yeah.
We
And on
survived.
that note, yes, and we survived and how? With what
Yes.
spirit? I think that is
Yes.
amazing. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Absolutely.
You take care, Dhruv. Yeah.
Thank you,
All
Sheba.
right.
All the
Thank you.
best.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.